Good evening, good morning, good whatever it is, wherever you are on the other side. This is Michele Kline with Kline Hospitality. Welcome to WTF, Walk the Floors, all things hospitality training. And I'm here with my co-hostess, Stephanie Ledger from First Rate Hospitality. Stephanie, how are you today?
Great. How are you today, Michele?
I'm doing fantastic. I know we have a very special guest with us today. Do you want to tell us who he is?
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of our favorite topics that we like to talk about too. So it's our pleasure that we're welcoming Diego Lopez onto our show and giving some insight to our listener and viewers on housekeeping. So welcome, Diego.
Hello, Michelle and Stephanie. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
And so tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about your background in hospitality.
So, I've been in the hospitality industry for I started actually in the hospitality industry in 2019 as a house person. One of those high school jobs that you go in and apply for, and it was just put some gas in my car. Eventually transitioned to a front desk role. I started learning and I started liking hospitality. It started diving in a little bit more in hospitality after I transferred over as soon as I graduated high school. There was a Hilton property next to the University of Texas at El Paso. It's a Hilton property, Hilton Garden Inn, and the only reason I dove into that property was because of free parking. So the way it worked was, yeah, you had the university that was located right next to campus, and as a student, I think the semester pass cost about $500 a semester, $300. I can't remember what it was, but I figured, I'm already doing a house person role and doing a little bit of front desk. And this first property that I started, it was closer to the airport, so I transferred over to that Hilton strategically to save a little money. And originally, I was studying political science at the University of Texas El Paso, and I found myself going back to work. It was very convenient, parking my car, my Jeep, walking over to campus, coming back, and doing my homework in the background, assisting guests, helping guests at the front desk. I started realizing that it was very smooth and very easy for me, and I really enjoyed it for some reason, as opposed to studying for political science in the back office and stressing out about my exam the next day. Ended up transitioning to New Mexico State University, which is a HRTM program in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and decided to really pursue hospitality there. I was managing two properties. It was by Marriott, a Spring Hill Inn, and a Courtyard right next to each other. Of course, smaller hotels, 150 rooms each. Nothing in a big scale like we do in Las Vegas. And I really wanted to pursue the next step. I really envisioned myself running a property at a larger scale as opposed to just being a general manager of a boutique hotel, and applied at a couple of positions here in Las Vegas, thinking it would be very easy to get a front desk position, which I realized it wouldn't be. Was denied for a couple of roles, and ended up working my way up like most leaders in the industry as a pool retail associate for Aria. It was a part-time seasonal position, and the leader that took a chance on me at the time, Mark Johnson, thought I was crazy that I was leaving two properties in Las Cruces, New Mexico, to give it a shot in Las Vegas. And I ended up taking the role. He thought I was going to take the role. Paid like $12.50 an hour, I believe. And I knew that wasn't going to be enough because it was a part-time seasonal position. But I reached out to the Courtyard by Marriott at the end of Las Vegas Boulevard. Spoke to a gentleman by the name of Sean Vicente. And I said, look, listen, like I've been working for Marriott for a couple of months, a couple of years. I really want to give it a shot in Las Vegas. If any chance you could give me an opportunity at your front desk. He took me on. He understood that the priority was always Aria and ensuring that I was growing my career on Las Vegas Boulevard. And he understood that. We worked very well with each other. 6 months into it, I was promoted within Aria to back to the front desk, which is what I was doing over in back home, and um, learned a lot after. I mean, working at a luxury 4-5 star property, which is Aria, coming from a Marriott property at a smaller city. I learned so much as far as guest experience in a luxury setting. Was able to host and adapt my skill sets in different ways to cater to a specific type of guest, and reinvent my hospitality skills as well when it came down to upsells and understanding that our room blocks or room types wouldn't necessarily be available for some of our guests. And that ended up leading me to my next chapter, which is housekeeping. I really wanted to understand the full picture. And there was an opportunity that presented itself at Luxor, which is a core property, with a great leader, Andy Meese, and worked through some challenges that everyone experienced in the housekeeping industry and hospitality industry. That was COVID. We had everyone experienced those supplies issues, the staffing issues, etc. And been doing that ever since.
That is such a great journey, Diego. What would you say is maybe the most important skill set or that one thing that you could tell someone who is looking at a career within the hospitality industry, but specifically in housekeeping? What perhaps would be your tip to them?
I think in the hospitality industry, whether it be housekeeping, especially housekeeping, any department's tough, but it's just, one day at a time. I've learned that a lot in housekeeping. You're not.
I wonder why you say that.
You're not. I've learned. I've learned lots. I've gained a lot of experience within my new roles, but here at Luxor and throughout my journey. But I think specifically now it's one day at a time. You're not going to tackle everything one day, but you could set yourself up for the next day. You won't necessarily fix the challenge today, but if you could just poke a little bit, open the door for tomorrow you get to hit it again. And if it's not going to be tomorrow, it's going to be the next week. But it's one day at a time, and if you stick to your vision, you stick to the plan, eventually you will get to that end goal that you're trying to achieve for your team and for the better good of the property.
Well, I think that's well said, Diego. Especially, the employees start seeing it and then they start adapting to your goal or to your vision and start, wanting to also to achieve success. So yes, one day at a time. Things, can't get accomplished overnight, but it takes a lot of motivation and encouragement for your team too.
Yeah, you got to stay, keep your gas on the pedal. But, and it's important to understand that, you got time, and if you're passionate about it, eventually you'll start turning that corner.
I love that. That's great advice. One day at a time, especially in housekeeping, for sure, where everything changes and you're constantly seeking to adapt. Because in housekeeping, it's all about being adaptable and how you're going to deal with the daily and what the day throws at you, I think.
Yeah.
For sure. Diego, what would you say, you've had a career in this industry, you've been around in various departments and in different roles. What would you say is the most memorable WTF mouth opening type of moment that you experienced where you feel like it could have been prevented? If management would have been out there, it could have been prevented. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in your role now, but it could be, as a guest or anything you've experienced so far.
That's tough. I've worked under many great leaders, and there's many great leaders in our industry. That's tough. Um, uh, I think I could speak to currently just our housekeeping, just understanding the pressure and the workload that one decision that we make, any decision that we make, um, especially as a leader and as you start um, having other leaders that report to you and they have their teams, the smallest decision can impact so many employees, and it trickles down to your guests, it trickles down to the employee morale, it'll trickle down to your other leaders. Um, but I think it's important to understand uh, any wrong decision, and we all learn from our mistakes, and I've made a couple of them myself, and I've tried to learn from them, but it really is more, it's important to be present, understand how a specific department works, and um, because the bottom line is you have your soldiers out there on the floors, which is in my current role is your guest room attendants or your floor managers, and they're the ones that are talking to your guests. They're the ones that are making that impact for your team. They're the ones that are making it or breaking it for your scores at the end of the month and the week, end of the year. They're the ones that are hands-on with your guests. And if you're making the right decision and making an informed decision, wow, does that blossom? The way that impacts your team, it just goes in so many levels, and you might not always see the good of the decisions you're making right away, but it takes a little bit longer for you to see those. But once you start making those decisions, wow, that's when you start building the great teams. That's when you start forming like a strong army, your soldiers. They'll go out there and take those battles on for you. And eventually, you get to focus in other areas that eventually just keep on adding layers and layers for that wall to build a strong foundation.
Great. And then also too, Diego, what do you enjoy most about being in hospitality?
I think it's working with others. And in my current role, it's it's almost motivating when we all have those tough days. But then, the name of your podcast is Walk Those Floors. You get to walk those floors and you see, a GRA not quitting. And I see a J just pushing the extra mile to finish her credits or her rooms right. You see that house person taking that extra role and assisting that guest before he's even going to be completing his duties for the day. You see, your, other departments, whether it be food and beverage, just going that extra mile. And it's almost a little motivating for yourself, for myself, to come back and just own that, own my area of responsibility. And it trickles down to, when I'm off of work too, right? But that's what I enjoy the most is there's some really passionate, hardworking people in our industry that just get up and keep doing it every single day. And that's, when you're around that, it's almost contagious. You just wanna keep going. It's hard to stop after that.
I love that. And the impact that it has on those people that are grinding day in and day out when they see leadership on the floor, right? When they see that you have someone who's willing to take their jacket off and get dirty with them. We always say, Stephanie and I, when we work through our training, that leadership starts with one person being engaged. You're not going to get employee engagement unless you're really out there. You have to be out there. Your people have to see you, and being able to recognize that one that is not quitting today, right? And motivate them and push them to be able to complete that day if they're having a hard one, or giving kudos to that houseman or house attendant who is, perhaps at the end of completing their duties, but still going that extra mile to do whatever needs to be done for that guest to have that amazing experience. I think it speaks really loud when, as leaders, we're out there getting involved and being able to see these things. I think it's huge.
You're right, and I think that's like, maybe that I guess that extra water break that you sometimes get in sports. You see one of your leaders up there, and you're like, all right, here we go. We get that extra breath now. Like, okay, awesome, you're here, and you're right. In housekeeping, it's your team appreciates you more when you take off your jacket and your stripping rooms for them on a heavy checkout day.
For sure.
And when they see you taking the initiative of whether it's the smallest piece of trash on the floor and you don't have a problem putting it in your jacket and keep walking. They might not say anything right away, but they
see it. Yeah.
And they know that you're willing to do the work, even if no one else is. And those little things just keep adding and adding and adding. And I do agree with you. If you walk the floors and you're involved and you're engaged, they're going to do anything for you.
I love that. Diego, one last thought for our audience. What would you say? What do you want to leave our audience with?
I recommend everyone to get on the show. It's a great opportunity. It's awesome to talk about hospitality with great leaders like yourselves, and really dive in and not only within your teams and in your properties, but throughout the hotel industry. There's many other great leaders that are next door to us that we wouldn't get to know if we don't dive in and just dive in.
I love that. Create community and collaborate. Fantastic. Diego, thank you so very much for being with us today and for sharing some of your insight and walking us through your career journey. It was very delightful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great day, and anytime you guys want to walk the floors here at Luxor, you guys are more than welcome to.
Sounds good. We'll take you up on that offer. We'll go walk the floors with you at Luxor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diego.
Thank you, Stephanie.